you don't mind, could you state your name and what you do?
My name is Dale Turrentine. I work for Arkansas Rehabilitation Services as the Community Program Development Manager. In our area, we work with the community rehabilitation programs that offer a variety of services. Plus, I have been the last 3 years assisting with coordinating and expanding the supported employment program.
What is supported employment?
Supported employment is where individuals with the most significant disabilities want to go to work and they have the abilities and skills and needs that are assessed, and then the provider will assist them in finding a job and then providing support on the job as they learn the details of the job, both the mechanics of the job and the social aspects of the position.
When did supported employment begin?
Well, in Arkansas, we were very fortunate. Support employment actually began with a grant program. We were one of the first 27 projects that were funded back in 1984. Madeline Will was the secretary of the Department of Education, Office of Special Ed. And we got a grant, so we were kind of a pilot project. And then in the Rehabilitation Act of 1986, the supported employment was put in there as a separate title under the Act.
How is supported employment funded?
Well, supported employment is funded through the Rehabilitation Act, Rehabilitation Service Administration. It's funded under what's called Title VI of the Rehabilitation Act, and which is specifically set out for supported employment. However, that's not a lot of funds. Arkansas gets a little less than $300,000, and so with that, we supplement it with vocational rehabilitation 110 money, which is the normal vocational rehabilitation services that help people become employed. And we also supplement it with state general revenue.
State general revenue. So the state of Arkansas uses tax dollars to help fund supported employment.
Well, they do, in the sense that if we're using vocational rehabilitation 110 money, which is under Title I of the Act, we are required to have a match to that federal dollars. And so our match for that, I believe, is I want to say 21.3%, and so that is what is usually state general revenue that matches that. The regular supported employment under Title VI does not require a match. It's 100% federally funded.
Dale, it seems as if $300,000, even if it was matched, or contributions from the state supported the federal amount, doesn't seem like a lot of money.
It's not a lot of money in the fact that if one client goes through our system, we just upped our support employment fees as of August the 1st of 2012. And the total fee for one individual to go from referral to successful employment is $8,000. So I'm not a math whiz, so $8,000 into $300,000, that tells you about, how many clients we can serve in a year with just that amount of money.
What are some barriers to success in supported employment?
Well, I think one of the barriers that we hear a whole lot about right now is the economic situation in the state of Arkansas and national. But I think also one of the biggest barriers I hear from individuals trying to help individuals with intellectual disabilities to go to work is that they don't want to lose their SSI check. Their misunderstanding of work incentives. They don't want to lose their Medicaid. But also some of just the concrete barriers are transportation. Being a rural state, we only have a few areas that have public transportation. Some of our providers do the transportation. Another barrier is what's called long-term support. Extended services follow along under support employment. And there's not a set-aside money for individuals who do not have an intellectual or developmental disability. And I just think the misconception about the fact that individuals with the most significant disability can't work, I think the attitudinal barrier is also one of those stepping stones that people have to work through.
Are there any barriers that you'd like to mention that are perhaps on a provider side
I think that on a provider side, most of our providers are already set up to be developmental disability providers. In other words, most of the all of the individuals that go there are receiving some kind of developmental disability services. So to get a provider to serve someone who is not on a waiver program in Arkansas is a challenge, because back to the funding, once Arkansas Rehabilitation Services closes them, it's successful, there's that follow along to make sure that they stay in the job that they're in. So I think the money for that is an issue. There's one thing I would like to add, because just being new to this in the last 3 years, and we're trying our best to expand statewide, to make sure that the provider staff is trained across the state consistently, that developers are getting the same kind of training, that job coaches are getting the same kind of training. That is one of the things that we've seen as a crucial thing to focus on in the next year, to try to get some consistency and equity again for that.
All right. That was going to be one of my questions, because my impression prior to getting a clear understanding of how the supported employment system worked was that the state of Arkansas and Arkansas VR was responsible for job creation. But there is a vendor list. Can you share a little bit about the vendors and your relationship with them providing jobs and training?
Well, the way the supported employment works in the state of Arkansas is we have support employment providers that are the vendors. We make a referral to them, and they accept our client. And their next stage in that process is job development and job creation, if they don't already know of one, to meet the individual's skills and abilities. And then, so we rely, in regards to the support employment aspect, on the vendor being the connection to the employment areas and the businesses in their area. Now, for regular vocational rehabilitation, we have some job placement people on our staff called business relation representatives, and they have a list of people that they, businesses that they follow up with.
Now, are the business relationship representatives VR counselors?
They are actually employed just to be job placement specialists.
Very good. What are some factors that can lead to successful supported employment from your side?
Our factors from Arkansas Rehabilitation Services is that we keep in touch with the provider and the individual as they go through the process. We require the provider to communicate with us monthly on the types of activities that are taking place in what's called milestones. So once they're referred, they're in the job development phase. We want to know how many applications the individuals filled out, how many job interviews that they've been on, what kind of classes that they've taken during that month. And that goes on until they actually find a job. And then once they find a job and their job matched, then once again, monthly reports are due, and we have some specific documentation on, are they going to their job, how are they getting along with coworkers, and there's a whole lot of information related to that. And so at each milestone, we have monthly reports, and if at any time during that process there's an issue, our counselors will assist with that. Our counselors really, once the client is connected to the provider, they are trusting the provider to do the best job they can to get that person served.
Does the counselor ever, from time to time, I guess, kind of check on the consumer to make certain that everything is okay? Or is that the responsibility of the job coach or the provider?
Well, that's a very good question, and I think it depends on the counselor. We have counselors that go to the providers every week or once a month, and to work with the providers. But I know there are counselors that actually go out and, like, if somebody's working at McDonald's, they might just stop and have a Coke to see, how Sally might be doing on their job, or, shop at Walmart to check up on Johnny, or whatever the job might be. So there are some who do, and some who have a big caseload and don't. Would be my guess. They depend on their providers to do it.
Dale, can you share with us a little bit about your education and your background and how you wound up here in supported employment with Arkansas VR?
I can. I have a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling, and I'm certified as a rehabilitation counselor. I've been around a long time. I got my degree in 1981, and from that I worked actually in the area of developmental disabilities in at that time a sheltered workshop as a lead instructor. And from that I worked with children in early intervention and school-age children with developmental disabilities. And so from there I went into the advocacy world, and I actually developed the Client Assistance Program under the Rehabilitation Act for the state of Arkansas. And that is the program that assists clients that may not feel like they're being treated fairly to get services for any program under the Rehab Act. So I did that for 12 years, and I was so good at it that I kept applying for Arkansas Rehabilitation Services, and I came to work over here. And the reason for my support employment background is mainly because I have been working with the community rehabilitation programs that have been sheltered workshops, which we call facility-based workshops.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been our main role in this section, to fund individuals to do assessment, work adjustment, and some continued extended longer days in there. And so this was just the right place for that program to land once we were going in transition. And I just really think that the fact that I am a person who pays attention to detail and knows the Rehabilitation Act like the back of my hand, that my section was the right place for this to land.
Is there anything else you'd like to add of importance?
I'd like to say that I think that support employment is one of the most exciting things. I know it's been around for a long time. I think that the states nationally have not utilized that. I think with what's going on with the advocates, we've trained our advocates really good, and that we're hearing out of Washington, well, we're going to shut down sheltered workshops. We're hearing there's a lawsuit in Oregon that says sheltered workshops are not integrated employment. And the national level says everybody ought to make minimum wage or above. And so with all of that discussion going on nationally, this is the time for support employment to step in and really start serving individuals with the most significant disability. And I know in the state of Arkansas there was just a change in Medicaid expansion related to individuals with developmental disabilities and intellectual disabilities, which has added some additional funds for employment experiences. And so we are working both with the providers in the area, with our Developmental Disability Providers Association, with our APSE Association, which is the Association for Providers of Support Employment. And we are moving forward on making some new initiatives in Arkansas. So that's all. Anything else?
Thank you, Ms.
You're welcome.
Turrentine. That was very good.
Oh, well,